Technology is critical. We're working with very complicated systems. Oftentimes it's a large scale, and any way we can gather or process more or higher quality data, streamline our work, any of these things really help us deliver a high quality project.
Welcome to the Stantec.io podcast, where we speak to scientists, designers, engineers, and architects who are combining subject matter expertise with cutting-edge technology to develop solutions that can help solve the problems of today and tomorrow. My name is Dave Roberts.
And I'm Mike Arsenault. Helping limit the impacts of climate change has been a major topic of conversation on the podcast recently, and today we're going to discuss nature-based solutions, which is often referred to as engineering with nature. Joining us to talk about the benefits and challenges of nature-based solutions is Andrew John, Stantec's nature-based solutions lead for the UK and Ireland, and Johnathan Scheibly, Stantec's blue carbon specialist for nature-based solutions.
Andrew is based in Taunton in England, and Johnathan joins us from Kentucky in the United States. Welcome to the podcast, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Now, Johnathan, I'd like to start with you. What drew you to the nature-based solutions team, and what exactly is the definition of a blue carbon specialist?
I'd say the draw has always been here, but it's been a long and winding path for me. I've always been interested in science and nature, and as a kid, my heroes are Carl Sagan and Jacques Cousteau. So this area of practice is sort of a natural progression for me, even though I didn't really know what it was called for a long time. So I pursued biology degrees and worked with streams, wetlands, and endangered species for years. And then I got really interested in design, came over to the dark side of engineering and got my engineering degree as a sort of a mid-course correction in my career. For me, it's a way to do science and make a difference, and having a foot in both the ecology and the engineering world really informs my design. And that's just understanding the ecological targets we need to hit and how to make that happen within site constraints and opportunities. My latest role with the nature-based carbon team is really an evolution of that, and it's a way for me to address an existential crisis with climate change in my practice, which kind of leads to the blue carbon specialist role. There's a lot of rabbit holes to go down there, but briefly, blue carbon refers to carbon sequestered in coastal ecosystems, and salt marshes, mangroves, seagrass meadows are the big three. And we're talking about equivalent amounts of carbon as what's stored in tropical forests, but in much smaller areas on a global scale. So in my practice, I look at understanding the geomorphology and the carbon dynamics in these ecosystems. We look at designing projects to protect and restore them, and then how potential projects might fit into ecosystem markets, like the voluntary carbon marketplace and the emerging biodiversity market.
So Andrew, I'll come to you next. What is the design approach of nature-based solutions, and can you give us some examples of ones you've worked on?
So you kind of mentioned it on the introduction about engineering with nature. Nature-based solutions are ultimately about designing with nature rather than fighting against it. The principle is to develop schemes that provide simultaneous benefits to people and nature, ultimately helping restore modified ecosystems and helping address societal challenges. And the type of work we get involved with is extremely varied, from working with landscape and ecology teams to develop wetland designs, to restoring salt marshes or mangroves, to provide natural flood defences and habitats, to landscape level assessments of natural capital over multiple kilometres with our digital and economics teams. We're currently working on multiple projects, but one of which I'll pick up on is a water recycling project where the recycled water is designed to discharge via a new wet woodland area before entering the river system. Our design for the wet woodland needs to maximise biodiversity but also have minimal water losses, and creating a wet woodland that both incorporates what happens to be local beavers in the catchment who will inevitably or hopefully modify the work we have created while still meeting the needs of the water transfer is a challenge for both the design team and the regulators. And we've also developed digital tools that allow us to determine best location within a catchment to locate various types of nature-based solutions such as tree planting, wetlands, floodplain reconnection to reduce the flood risk to infrastructure downstream. And these kind of projects provide potential for substantial ecosystem restoration, but also save the client significant costs and carbon impacts.
Johnathan, Andrew touched on some of the benefits of nature-based solutions briefly. Wondering if you could just dive a little bit deeper into the benefits of utilizing nature-based solutions specifically for clients.
Yeah, I would really just echo what Andrew said as sort of the driving principle. First and foremost, we're utilizing natural processes rather than fighting them. So to use a metaphor, we're trying to treat a disease, not a symptom. An example would be like with stream erosion. If we can identify what's driving the problems in the channel, whether that's a lack of floodplain vegetation, unstable channel morphology or whatever, we can use the driving ecological and morphological principles to address the actual issue rather than just beef up a stream bank with a hard revetment or something like that. That approach lets us design solutions that are more resilient, more sustainable long term, and require less maintenance. So that ultimately means less cost to the client. These can also self-adjust to future conditions. They typically are gaining strength over time rather than more traditional gray approaches that are the strongest the day you install them. And we can do all this while using materials that are often on site and provide other co-benefits from these healthy ecosystems. So really, it's something as effective as a traditional approach with less cost and longer service life.
That's fantastic. Johnathan, what about the benefits to the communities? Can you give us some examples of those?
There's a bunch of different community benefits outside of just cost savings or sort of more of the benefits that are baked into the project itself, whether that is something looking to increase biodiversity, a larger scale thing looking to mitigate climate impacts, or a localized problem like erosion. A lot of times these are projects that have much more aesthetically pleasing components to them. Typically people like to look at a vegetated bank rather than a bunch of rocks, for example. There's that. They also can tie into, and I know we keep talking about co-benefits over and over again, but that's sort of one of the critical distinctions with nature-based versus hard engineering. You can just reap a bunch of benefits that are important to a lot of different folks. And again, beyond aesthetics, that can be biodiversity, that can be increased access to a particular amenity like a river or a wetland. So there's a number of things that go beyond, I guess, sort of the nuts and bolts focus of the project.
So, Andrew, I think it's pretty clear that what the benefits are for nature-based solutions, but I'm sure it's not quite that simple. So what are some of the challenges of utilizing nature-based solutions?
I mean, there are many challenges. Ultimately, nature isn't neat and tidy, which often clashes with the efficiency neatness that is inherent in the industry. Engineering in particular tends to be driven to make design smaller, more space efficient, or treat to a higher level if you're talking about water quality. However, a nature-based solution typically will need room to breathe to maximize its biodiversity benefits, and teams and clients need to look beyond the specific metrics that set up the project in the first place. As natural systems, their performance can also be variable and therefore doesn't always meet rigid rules set by regulators. This is why we see so many nature-based related trial schemes. While we know they work and they are generally better at delivering the multiple benefits such as carbon and cost reduction alongside biodiversity benefits, the regulators can still be figuring out how to ensure the variability fits with the targets they set.
And Johnathan, coming back to you, how does your group work to mitigate these types of challenges?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Andrew. One of the biggest challenges is inertia in thought. These tried and true traditional solutions and, focus and approach that he was just discussing, they're hard to move beyond, especially for decision makers who may have a lot of risk considerations. So really our role to overcome that is in education and demonstration. Once you show a client that nature-based solutions work and they can see the additional benefits, it's a relatively easy sell. And using that approach, we've really shifted the thinking of a lot of municipal clients into looking more at nature-based solutions as a standard practice for things like infrastructure protection, stormwater management, and water quality improvement, in addition to the more traditional roles that are more tied to ecosystem functional uplift.
Andrew, what is the collaboration process like among groups at Stantec to get nature-based solution projects to the finish line?
Nature-based solutions do need a high level of collaboration. It's often across multiple design teams and external stakeholders. Typically, they take up more room than an engineering design. So as an industry, to be honest, we don't always get it right. And as a whole, the industry has tended to move into a highly specialized way of managing people. So they're very focused on their specific topics. And there needs to be more openness to questions and encouragement to enable, for example, a drainage engineer to sit down with landscape or transport to best integrate a scheme into the local community or the urban area. However, when we do get it right, and one of the huge benefits of working at Stantec is the vast amount of experience and skill across all the regions, and being able to access and draw on that experience from people, including Johnathan on this call, to upskill teams or strengthen bids is something we need to ensure is made as easy as possible. just being able to talk to teams who have undertaken similar roles and who are driven by the same desires to integrate nature into everything we do is inspiring.
And as this is the Stantec.io podcast, I have to ask that question. How does technology play a role in all of this?
This is near and dear to my heart, and not just because I'm an engineering nerd. I'm helping lead our nature-based solutions innovation initiative, and technology is critical. We're working with very complicated systems. Oftentimes, it's a large scale, and any way we can gather or process more or higher quality data, streamline our work, any of these things really help us deliver a high quality project. And as Andrew was just discussing, these are fuzzy type of things. So the more information you can get real time, the better. We've got a lot of innovative tools that we bring to the table here at Stantec. And to me, some of the most exciting that we've been working a lot with recently are eDNA and our drone technology. So just very briefly, eDNA is a process where you collect loose DNA from an environment. You then come back to the laboratory, sequence that DNA, and compare your results against a library of samples to identify organisms at your site. Now, this is great for identifying species presence and diversity in challenging or even dangerous environments, or finding species that are hard to capture or ones that are hard to identify. We're using it for things like tracking fish passage after dam removals, or endangered species assessments in remote locations, long-term monitoring, things like that. And this is a real innovation for efficiency and again, at times, safety for our staff. The drone technology is pretty interesting too, more of a techie thing. We're using units that are equipped with high resolution cameras and LiDAR sensors to create virtual models of project sites. So you can essentially take an immersive 3D walkthrough of a given restoration site to assess its condition, track changes over time, evaluate performance, and you can really capture a lot of detail that field notes or static photos just really can't capture. And this is a great tool for design, for monitoring, maintenance, as well as our own internal documentation.
That is just fascinating, Johnathan, the meld of technology with the nature-based solutions team. And it's just incredible work that the teams are doing across the entirety of the company. Andrew, I'm curious if you can give us another example of a project that you're currently working on that really excites you, and why is that?
Probably much like Johnathan, I'm a big nerd. But what I most love about this role is that I'm getting drawn into projects that are so varied that I can genuinely spend one call talking about beavers in the southwest of the UK and the next about how to integrate military-grade satellite data or drones into a salt marsh restoration project. So just that variety is the thing that properly excites me in this space. But we're currently working on a project where we're assessing a significant landowner's land holding to determine what the natural capital potential there is moving forward. It's exciting because it's not just about developing a project to maximize carbon or biodiversity credits. They genuinely want to demonstrate societal value, such as woodland planting to reduce flood risk downstream, or access for the community for mountain bike trails, and actually maximize the use of their land for both people and nature. And that project, and similar to other natural capital projects we're working on, is where we're seeing the next tranche of NBS design coming from, as large landowners start to understand the benefits of nature-based solutions to solve their problems. And I think that future work is the thing that's most exciting me at the moment.
And Johnathan, the final question to you. Where do you think nature-based solutions will be in the next 5 to 10 years?
Wow. I'd say the sky's the limit. Right now, we're smack in the middle of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Engineering with Nature initiative is requiring consideration of nature-based approaches in all their projects. So there's a lot of leadership in this space. And then, this work is, to coin a phrase or use a tired one, it's in our corporate DNA. Stantec's been doing this for decades. We were the first consultancy offered membership in both of those programs I just mentioned, and we've got no plans to slow down. We've got a lot of smart, passionate people doing this work, and it really, really matters to us on a personal level, in addition to the company level. On a larger scale, clients are becoming more and more savvy regarding sustainability and project longevity. Nature-based design approaches, they really will give robust solutions that can accommodate future conditions, and they provide benefits outside of strict project objectives. We've been talking about that as a recurring theme. And it's often at a lower cost than these hard approaches. And I think nature-based solutions are bound to be standard approaches in the near future because of this. The more and more we can educate our clients, demonstrate what we're doing, the more and more that this is going to become, right at the forefront of people's minds as they're looking to do things.
That's been so insightful, but unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Andrew and Johnathan, thank you both for sharing your insights on nature-based solutions. It's certainly clear that integrating these solutions into our built environments is a critical requirement, and it's really encouraging to hear how collaboration, technology, and expertise are helping to address these challenges. Thank you both once again for being part of the Stantec.io podcast.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you very much.
And thank you for listening. Future episodes will continue to explore how digital technology is shaping our world. In the meantime, you can also visit our website at www.stantec.io for more information.